that look like they've literally been trapped in there for like 20 years and they just keep eating. And it's insane. Okay, hi guys, I'm Chris Sabat. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I do voices on the Dragon Balls. I didn't come out quite the way I wanted it to. I was Vegeta. He's this like short guy. He's this like short guy, and he's got hair, and he has a hemorrhoid problem, and he's always like, I'm in so much pain always. And unfortunately, at one point, he said this phrase where he says over 9,000, and everybody makes me say it all the time, and so that's awesome. Just imagine if there was one thing in your life that somebody just came up to you and just say, I just parked my car. Just say it. You're like, oh man, I just said that to everybody like 5 seconds. Just say it again though. But hold on, I'm gonna just say it into my phone real quick. Let me just say it into my phone. That'll make all the difference. So yeah, that was one character I played. I started recording on Dragon Ball Z like a billion years ago, like in 1998 is when I started recording. Some of you were born, especially that one. And she is so bored at this panel. They're like, just give her the iPhone. She's not gonna like any of this. So yeah, I started in 1998 at Funimation Productions. We had about 6 people working for the company. They didn't have any shows. They had just finished a show called Cyborgs. None of you guys ever saw that. It was the worst show of all time. They got the animation done in India, and it was about, I called it Cyborgs, Digital Piggies. And it was like literally these really poorly animated pigs that would go on adventures and stuff. And I wish I could find that. Anyway, so they hired me to come in and do these voices on this show called Dragon Balls or whatever. And I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard of it. And back in 1998, there was no real internet. I mean, there was kind of an internet. It was like a quasi-internet. It was sort of a place that they called the internet, but if you wanted to download a picture, you'd have to download it overnight and just let it just scroll. I mean, maybe, kind of like dial up in this area. But no, it's just the worst internet ever. And so there were no fan sites, there were no fan dubs, there was no YouTube, there was no outlet to see any of this, so I couldn't research it at all. All I just did was come in and I sat down, and the first day I got there, they had this conference room that had all these posters from Japan on it, and had all these pictures of these dudes with yellow hair, and I go, oh, who's that? And they go, that's Goku. And I go, who's that? And they go, that's Goku. I'm like, no, that dude has yellow hair. Oh yeah, he has yellow hair later. I'm like, oh, okay, who's that? Oh, that's Gohan. I'm like, but he looks just like him. And he goes, yeah, that's his son. I'm like, who's that? That's Gohan. It's like, is that Gohan? Like, no, that's Goku when he was a kid. I'm like, oh, so there's Goku. I'm like, no, that's Goten. So it was needless to say, it was really confusing, and they handed me a trash bag full of VHS tapes, and they said, here, Chris, go watch all the Dragon Balls at home. And they just gave me this trash bag full of all the episodes that they had, which, to be clear, they didn't have all the episodes. All they had was just up to where we were going to be recording, which was just a bunch of episodes of this big green dude that was training this annoying little kid, this kid that apparently he'd stolen from someone else in the woods, and it was the most boring stuff I'd ever watched, but for whatever reason I couldn't stop watching it. This is so, okay, I gotta see the next episode at least. And then I'd watch more of it, and I was like, if they just get out of the woods, I'm gonna be really happy with this show. And eventually they got out of the woods. And oh yeah, I played that green guy named Piccolo. And Piccolo's the big green guy on the antenna, and his basic job in all of Dragon Ball is just to tell Gohan what to do. Yes. So much so it's almost like Gohan's his pet, like his dog. Because mostly it's like, Gohan, go! Gohan, do it! Gohan, don't do it! Okay, stay. Gohan. Stay, Gohan! Go! Now stay. Now do it. Do it and stay. Stay! Gohan, don't do it. Go Gohan, stop! Get out of here, Gohan! But do it and stay while you're at it. He was all like. I never quite understood Piccolo's character entirely because, especially at that time, because it didn't make any sense to me. Eventually, we went back and recorded Dragon Ball, which explained, you know, that Piccolo was born a King Piccolo and he came out of an egg, and then the evil part of him like split out, and that it still didn't make any more sense to me, really. But Vegeta is still my favorite all-time character to play, mostly because I've only been playing that guy for like 16 years now. And what's awesome is now they have new movies and stuff. You guys saw Resurrection F and Battle of Gods, and it's so amazing. Yeah, I was just at a con in Australia 2 weeks. In fact, I only got back 3 days ago, so I'm super jet lagged right now. I'm like the worst jet lag. And out there, they hadn't gotten Resurrection F yet because they get everything so late. Apparently, they have to like float the tapes over there on a raft or something. And but it was a fun con. The Australians are like, it's like they're like Canadians with their own island, sort of, because they're so nice. They're just the nicest people. That g'day mate, do you mind signing my poster? I'm sorry, I know I just waited 2.5 hours to get your signature, but I'm really sorry that you did. I'm like, why are you apologizing to me right now? You're the one that had I wouldn't wait in line this long for anything. So, but yeah, I'm super jet lagged. Like last night, I was determined to go to sleep. I was get some sleep because I got this trip the next day. So I went to bed at 10 o'clock, which is like yesterday for me, and. It was insane. I went to bed super early and I slept, and I finally slept super hard. I was like, yes, I did it. And I looked at my clock and it was like midnight. I'd only slept for like 2 hours total. So I went and I got breakfast this morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't stand it anymore. And then my daughter, who's like 5, came downstairs this morning and she's like, Daddy, let's go get breakfast. I said, Daddy already ate breakfast like hours ago. And her face goes, oh. And I go, of course I'm gonna get breakfast with you. So I ate 2 breakfasts this morning, and then ate at the airport, and then ate at Paula Deen's today, so I am like, seriously, I'm gonna throw up. I'm so sorry. So I worked on Dragon Ball, and back in those early days of working on that show, we didn't have a lot of things, like simple things, like advanced recording technology. Nowadays we just have a computer, we record, and we can pop to any part of the episode we want to at any time. We can if we want to, we can just zip in for just like 1 word, or if you need to extend out a scream because you're this much short, you can scream and then layer the 2 together and extend it a tiny bit longer if you need to. But back in those days, we had this huge cassette recorder. It was called a 3/4 beta deck, and it was enormous. It sat on the desk. It was huge. It was like 3 feet by 2 feet, and it had these cassettes that were about the size of this mixing board, that you put into it. And it took 20 minutes just to rewind a 20-minute episode. It was like, I think it rewinds in real time. And it would take forever. And whenever you press the button to record, it would go, I'm not even exaggerating. It made these weird noises, and then it would start playing. And then when you were done recording a line, Gohan, go, or whatever, and you press stop, and then the machine would just sit there, but you couldn't touch it, because if you touched it, it would screw something up and it would start rewinding all the way to the beginning, and you couldn't stop it, so you had to just wait. And then you never knew how long it was going to be. It could sometimes be like 5 minutes, or it could be like 15 minutes or 20 minutes. You just had to wait on it to stop. So they were really annoying recording days. Funimation didn't have money or anything back then either, because Dragon Ball wasn't super successful necessarily yet, and it was on TV, but I think people, and I didn't know this back then, but apparently, I guess people assume that if you have a show on TV, it means you're making a lot of money or something. But apparently, with cartoons especially, you don't make a lot of money by giving your show to a TV station. You basically are. It's like a 30-minute commercial for toys. And so all it is trying to sell toys and stuff is the only way they can make money on it. So Funimation didn't have a lot of money back then. And so it was hard to find actors to work on the show because no one had heard of Dragon Ball Z. So they said, Chris, your job you're the voice director now. Your job is to get actors to be on this show. I'm like, okay. So I went to the agencies and I said, hey guys, we're going to do a show called Dragon Ball Z, and we're going to pay them some money to do it. They're like, how much money? We want big money to do it. We go, we have little money. And they said, get out of here. So I had to put like ads in the paper, and I went to universities, I went to theater departments, I went everywhere I could to try and find people to work on Dragon Ball Z. And we had this giant cattle call audition with just anybody. And we ended up finding a majority of our cast, and we found, out of like 1,500 people who weren't even professional actors, we found 11 good people out of all of those people. And that's where we got our first cast from. That's where we got Sean Schemmel, who plays Goku. In fact, when I called him, I was like, hey, Sean, you got the part of Goku in the show. He goes, oh, really? I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I thought my Captain Ginyu audition was really good. I said, trust me, you're gonna like this role, okay? Like, you're gonna want Goku. He's like, are you sure? Because man, I thought I nailed Captain Ginyu. Shut up, dude, you're gonna play Goku in the show. He's like, okay. And we recorded him for finally 2 weeks before I was like, because I like to mess with him a little bit. I'm like, you know you're the lead in the show, right? He's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, okay. So during that time, we were trying our best to find people, and I had the lowest voice of anybody on Earth, of anybody that they could find. So whenever there were new characters, that we would try and find people. We were in such a rush to get on Cartoon Network, the producers were like, Chris, you just do another one, man. So I ended up playing Vegeta, Piccolo, Yamcha, Mr. Popo, Kami, all the dragons. Didn't matter which one it was, I was all of them. Which it didn't matter anyway, because the dragons just do this. Like, it doesn't, like, they just said, screw it, we're not animating this, we're just gonna have the dragons go, your wish. So we just kind of had to talk over it and just hope that people didn't care. Because honestly, if we had to follow the mouth movements exactly, all you get is like, your wish has. And like no one would know what that meant. So we had to not do that. And so I don't know, I kind of go off on tangents, I apologize. So there weren't a lot of people, so I played guys. Also, after the dragons, I was like Icarus and Jace and Raccoon and Birder and Zarbon and basically the Ginyu Force. And some of those roles I didn't get immediately. Some of them I got because we had an actor that was going to play it, but because we weren't giving them that much money, they're like, hey, I'm going to go do something else instead that pays me more money, so sorry. And so we would have to like replace them quickly, and a lot of the times they're just, Chris, just go in there and do another one, man. Like, just do it. And I didn't know back then how important it was, or I knew it was important. We were trying to do great things and get on TV, but I just didn't realize that those roles and those things that we're doing were going to be the things that led me to be here like 16 years from now, and like going to Australia, and it's got me all over the world. I've gone to the UK, and I've gone, anywhere you can think of, I've been because of Dragon Ball Z, and it was the luckiest job I ever got. Like, it was so insane, because it was really my first real voice acting gig. I'd been a DJ before that, I'd done a lot of commercial voiceover, and I'd done character voices on commercials before, but I'd never done anything, no one had ever done anything like Dragon Ball before, because not only was it something unusual, because anime back in 1998 was still something that most people were just, especially older people, were just like, cartoons are for kids, man. I don't know why these adults are watching this stuff. So there was a lot of perception that anime couldn't be for kind of everyone. And that's why back in those days they insisted on us, writing the show a little dumber than it was supposed to be. And a lot of the stuff that people kind of liked about the show kind of didn't even exist, because we made some of it up, and the writers kind of made a bunch of stuff up. Guess what, guys? Cats love food. Yeah. Like, didn't exist in the Japanese, I'm afraid. And so, so after doing all that stuff, finally, the Dragon Ball Z was done. I never thought it would be over. And then we finally got our next show, and that was after like 6 years of working on that show. And then we worked on Yu Yu Hakusho. Do you guys remember that show? Yeah, okay, I guess you do. And I think this guy named Kubara, and he had and that was such a fun show, mostly because it wasn't Dragon Ball Z. But secondly, because it was actually a really awesome show, and it really resonated with people, and people still really like that show to this day. It's pretty awesome. And Justin Cook was my director on that, and Justin was actually my engineer on Dragon Ball for a lot of it too, so it was really fun working with a guy I worked with pretty much every day. And after that, I was working on, actually, at that point, I started working on a show called Blue Gender, which, like, yay! One person goes like, 2 people go like, yay! I remember seeing that piece of garbage. It was actually, that wasn't that bad of a show, and the only reason that Blue Gender is important for me and for Funimation is it was the very first show that we worked on that was similar to the way we work on shows today, because it was the first time that we actually got the show with all the materials, all the sound effects and the music and everything. Because in Dragon Ball, people are like, hey, were you inspired by the Japanese voices on Dragon Ball Z? And I'm like, I never heard them. In fact, we never had the Japanese materials to watch it. Like, the Japanese, I guess, had put it on a boat, the same one they were going to send to Australia eventually, to America with all the materials on it. And we didn't have it, and we needed to get it on TV, so we had to get all the materials for Dragon Ball Z from the Mexican dub of Dragon Ball Z. So the only stuff I ever heard, if I even chose to listen to, was it was really, really a funny dub, and so we didn't learn much from that. We got done with that, and so we worked on Blue Gender, and then that was the first time where I insisted that the writers really try and stay very close to the translation, and we listened every single line. We referenced the Japanese first. We listened to the Japanese first, and then we would do our own version, and that's the way we record today. Like you always listen to the Japanese version first, and then you go and you record your line after it. I'm sure you guys have seen that extra feature or something about how dubbing works, although it's not that much of a mystery anymore since you pretty much can do it on your home computer now. So after that show, I was really excited because there was this interesting little show about a girl that lives in a house with a bunch of dudes that all turn into animals when they hug each other. And I was like, yeah, okay, it was called Fruits Basket, and I went to Justin, and he was casting that one, and I said, he said, are you interested in being in the show? I'm like, of course I am. And I said, yeah, there's actually a character, his name is Hattori, and I thought it'd be kind of nice, he's just sort of a normal dude living in the world. He goes, actually, I've got a different part in mind for you. And I ended up playing this guy named Ayame, who was basically Vegeta. Or actually the polar opposite of Vegeta. Like, I was used to playing dudes like Alex Louis Armstrong or like big guys that could shoot fire out of their hands or something like that. And ended up like playing this dude, and he's like this, 6 foot tall blonde guy who's a cross-dresser that likes to kiss boys or something like that. And it was a total departure from what I was used to, but I liked it. It was really good. It was actually one of the harder roles I've ever had to play, not because of the subject matter, it's just he talked really fast, and I'm used to, guys who don't talk very much. Like I always play, almost always I'm cast as the guy who doesn't want to be involved with the group, but is with the group anyway. Like Kurogane in Tsubasa Chronicles, or Zoro in One Piece, who, like every time it's like the person he's a good guy, kind of, but doesn't want to really hang out with them, but he has to because he's kind of good, but he wants to be bad, or I don't know. It's always something like that for me. And then around that point, right around I guess the time we were working on Full Metal Alchemist, is when Funimation just started getting a ton of shows, and that's where my memory starts going blank. It's like I've been on a lot of stuff since then. Some of my favorites, though, where's this hysterical show about a bunch of frogs that get stuck. Yeah. You guys know Sergeant Frog? If you haven't seen that show, you should try and find it because it's really, really funny. Oh, somebody, you're pointing at somebody.
This little girl.
Yes, that, okay. How old is she?
She's 8.
She's 8, yeah. That's actually the first anime I'm going to introduce my daughter to, is Sergeant Frog, because it's such a easygoing, fun show. There's nothing too like weird about it. I mean, there's lots weird about it, but nothing like inappropriately weird about it. I do know, and I'm sorry if you're these parents that have done this already, but I do know I've met a lot of people that introduce their kids to Dragon Ball at a really young age. They'll come up and like, "This is my son. His name's Gohan. He's been watching this show since he was a baby." And wasn't that funny? Yeah. She cracked up. The toddler cracked up at that one. Or it was probably something on the iPhone actually.
Probably gas.
Like, his name's Gohan. He loves that show, man. He's been watching it, but I can't do it just yet. I've tried introducing my daughter to some of that stuff, and it doesn't work for her. The only reason she even knows who Vegeta is and she recognizes him is because I told her that he's a prince. And she's like, "Who's that, Daddy?" I'm like, "That's Vegeta. He's a prince, right?" And so she's into Vegeta. She knows who Vegeta and Piccolo are, and that's it. I am gonna introduce her to it, but just give her some time to get all this stupid stuff that she watches out of her brain first. She watches, some of the stuff she watches, okay. She watches Sophia the First a lot, which honestly doesn't have the worst music in it, and I love it because one of the main characters in Sophia the First is played by the King Roland guy. If you all are ever unfortunate enough to have to watch this show for whatever reason. Exactly. King Roland is played by Travis Willingham, who is, he was Mustang in Full Metal Alchemist. And so that's one reason to watch. You get to hear him sing all these dumb songs about, "We're making bread and we're being happy." So yeah, it's crazy. And so I don't always watch it, but I hear a lot of it because sometimes it'll play in the car. And that's the only reason I like that over some of the other shows, because Travis's voice is imprinting on my daughter's brain. So he was one of my favorite people. Travis is married to Laura Bailey, who was Keiko in whatever that show was we talked about earlier, Fruits Basket, and she's been a billion things. She was Kid Trunks.
Shin-Chan.
And Shin and Shin-Chan. I played a few characters in Shin-Chan too. I was a guy named Mr. K. I was this like limo driver, and I was the narrator who was like, "Lesbians!" Like, I never knew what I was gonna say on any episode because it was always weird. And I also played a character named Yanro, like this guy. Yanro could never get out of community college, and that show was so weird. My favorite show that I've worked on that's a comedy, that I don't even know if it's certainly not my favorite show to watch, but it was my favorite show to work on, was a show called Panty and Stocking. Because I always wanted to play a guy with this voice so much. I was so confident. That was one of the only roles I've ever honestly begged for. Because I went into comedy and I'm like, seriously, I know I've got a good chance, because you need to do it with a deep voice, and you need a guy who can talk really fast, and I really want to do this. If you can't find anyone else to do it, like I really want to do this. And it's funny, because Ian came in to me one time for a session, and I said, "Hey, how you doing, man?" He's like, Good, man, I just, Ian played Chuck on that show. But he came in and he goes, "Yeah, I got a part on Panty and Stocking." I'm like, "Oh, awesome." He's like, "Yeah." He's this really big black guy. He's dressed like a preacher. I'm like, No. And I start texting Colleen. He's like, "No, it's a joke. It's a joke. So, yeah, that show was ridiculous to record on. I said some things I could never repeat. Although if you want to repeat them, you can repeat them over and over again. Just buy those episodes, because it's all the dirtiest stuff I've ever seen, ever. Let's see. So yeah, I've worked on a ton of stuff. In fact, I'm trying to list them all out, but then I happened to be on behind the voice actors or something. They list out all your roles, and I have 600 credits now, like over 600 credits. That's crazy. weird when you show up at an anime studio before it becomes a thing, how many roles you can get. So, lately I've been in some fun stuff. I've been doing a pretty awesome role because one of the first anime I ever saw was Ghost in the Shell. And Funimation recently took on this kind of a new series called Arise. And I'm playing Bato in that, like the guy with the weird buggy eyes things. It's such a dream to work on that show. I got to be in a season of Psychopaths. If you all are watching that? That was such an awesome show. I cannot remember the character's name, but he's sort of the betrayer, but you'll get it. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it. You know what, let's just open it up to questions. What the heck? I mean, what the heck? Why not? Yes. Do you have a question? So, wow, you brought your own microphone. That's awesome. Oh, I'm good at repeating what people say. What's your question, person in awesome hat? Hi. That's not a question. This is more of a statement. Very basic one.
I was wondering if when you were doing the movie playing your values, if when you said that's my goal up, if there was a lot of bloopers with that.
Oh, man, actually, there weren't. There were no bloopers for "That's my Bulma" line, but there was a lot of discussion about it because in the translation it did say that's my wife, and I did say my Bulma because I wasn't 100% sure that I looked in the translation and it was sort of nebulous. Like the writer wrote that, but the translation didn't necessarily say that either. And since Vegeta had never established fully in the series that they were married, I was a little scared to commit to saying the word wife. So I thought that's my Bulma worked just fine. Later I've come to find out that the Japanese are absolutely committing to the idea that those two are married, so I think it's awesome. I would love to see a wedding episode. And from what I've seen of Super so far, Dragon Ball Super, I wouldn't be surprised if they flash back to that in some way, because I don't know how many of you have been catching some of the stuff that's been aired already in Japan for Dragon Ball Super, but it's a real slice of lifey kind of. I have a lot of really interesting, fun stuff that they might be just doing at home or whatever. Yes, the Spider-Man cosplay. I'm just joking.
Would you like to do another Dragon Ball Z game, like Budokai 3?
I would love to do another Budokai 3. And I would love to, I don't know anything yet, but I can pretty much guarantee we're going to do another game. We do a game almost every single year. I loved working on Xenoverse, though. I actually thought Xenoverse was pretty good. And did all of you play Voice 8 by any chance?
Takahara.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the most fun sessions. You can do custom, and for those of you who aren't aware, in the Xenoverse game, there are custom characters that you can choose from, like 20 different voices that you can make your personal character sound like. And for voice number 8, which is just happened to be to the random number that we chose, I brought in all the Team 4-star guys into the studio, but the plan was to use more of them, but unfortunately, we didn't have the materials in time, and blah blah blah. But the first guy to record was Takahata, the guy who plays like Nappa and Ghost Nappa and all that, and we had him in there, so he was reading the lines, but Lonnie and Kaiser were with me in the studio, and we were trying to come up with funny parodies of all the lines. It's worth buying the game just to hear, or at least finding it on YouTube, just to hear all of the different variations of his stupid lines that he did. Instead of Tri-Beam, which is Tien's attack, he said geometry, and then he has another form of Tri-Beam. It's like kind of called Neo Tri-Beam. I don't know how many times he ever used it in the series, but he said advanced geometry. And it's worth finding. And if you just look up Voice 8 Dragon Ball Z video game on YouTube, you'll probably hear all the quotes from all of it, and it's super funny. Yes?
Did you like doing the voice for Armstrong and Infinite?
No, I did not like doing the voice of Armstrong. Are you kidding? He's like this tall. He's practically naked all the time. an awkward dude to work with, really. Like, hey, what's up? I'm not wearing a shirt today. Yeah, he was I love playing Alex Louis Armstrong. He was such a fun character. And what's awesome about that is that I was so inspired not only by the way the character looks and his crazy lines and the sparkles that come out of his face. The guy who does the Japanese voice of Alex Louis Armstrong is just as brilliant as the character is. So it really was pretty easy channeling that character to be able to not only see it, but when you preview it, you have his voice like on the preview track too. I tried to do something kind of similar to his as well. So that's kind of one thing we tried to do is keep his voice sort of similar to what the Japanese was. I loved Brotherhood because he's in it more often, and you get to meet his sister, and he meets another dude that's got like a big beard, and then like they have this like man crush on each other, and they do this epic bro fist or whatever together. And that was amazing. Yes.
The scene where you did a nice from prison and tells about his relative to lines did previously.
That's kind of hard to say. Like, I remember doing it the first time, and I loved the lines that were originally there. Although, getting a chance to do it again, I really enjoyed it too. It's really, really hard because when I did those lines for Vegeta the first time around, I was 10 years younger, and I really wasn't as experienced. And I think it's just hard to compare the two. They were just two different places in time, and I really haven't been able to compare them like back to back. I was just really excited that Kai existed because it was a chance for us to redo all these voices, kind of do them again, and then tell the story a little closer to what the original intention was. Because I love Dragon Ball Z, and I love those orange boxes. I like everything that's in them, even though some of it's just dreadfully bad. Like some of it's just awful, but that's why it's so good, is because it was so terrible at times. And so I don't know, it's hard to compare. Maybe I'll do a panel at some point where I just play the two back to back, and I'll let other people decide for me. So, what was your opinion? What did you prefer?
I liked the first one because it was more emotional.
Yeah, I was younger back then, I have no idea. The lines were really good. The hard part about Kai, even though it does tell a more accurate story, is it's so short, and there's not a lot of room to breathe. And what Funimation did originally, they assumed that people wouldn't be able to handle the epic silences that were in Dragon Ball Z originally. I don't know how many of you have compared the English dub to what was originally in the Japanese, but if you happen to have those discs, flip over and you'll see that like a lot of the times they just say something and it's just like and it's just like really long passages of them just staring at one another. And that made the producers really awkward. They're like, American kids aren't gonna sit around that long, man. They're gonna have people talking to them. So, whereas in the Japanese version, it would be somebody talking to someone and they cut away to their back. Like Funimation would use that opportunity to write more stuff. So the lines, I'm sure, had to have been a lot longer. There was a lot more to it. So, or maybe not. Maybe it's exactly the same. Honestly, I probably maybe need to go back and watch them again. But thank you. That was a good question, actually. You guys can rest your hands for just a second because I'm going to do a little bit on this side of the room. You there.
Yeah, you said you worked with the guys on Big Horsepower. What was it like for them to be a bridge for Dragon Ball? Like, how was that like?
Oh, man, I love those guys a lot. I think they're hysterical, the Abridged dudes. If you haven't seen Dragon Ball Z Abridged, I'm sure you have. It's stupidly funny. Exactly. Exactly. There's a billion quotes. It's so frustrating because there's so many quotes and people come up to me all the time. I haven't seen all of the episodes, but I've seen a fair bit of it. As far as like doing any work on that, of course, I've never worked on that show ever. I would never do that because I have a contract with Funimation. I would never work on an abridged version of a show that I have a contract to be on. I would never do that. But my favorite actor that's ever worked with the Team 4-Star guys is this guy named DJ Sexadillionaire. And he's an amazing voice actor that I know has worked with. He's told me he loves working with those guys, and they send him materials, and then he'll just look at the script and kind of send them whatever he thinks is funny, and then they'll just put it in the episode. So, yeah, I really like them a lot. They moved to Dallas recently, so I wish I could say I saw them all the time, but I don't, because I'm more places not in Dallas than I am in Dallas because I travel a lot. Yes.
I was wondering how you felt about playing Coach Saturday.
I didn't. All I heard was playing.
How did you feel about playing him free as Coach Saturday?
Oh, Free, and man, that's such a good show. I think I got like the most heterosexual character too. It was awesome. No, that's such a weird. That's such a fascinating show because it is so. Like, it's so fan servicey at the same time. Like, I sometimes feel almost as awkward watching Free as I do when I watch any of the shows that are fan servicey the other direction, which is like, we're gonna have a pool episode. They go to the water park. Like, all right, that makes no sense. Like, why are we there? It's a space battle. Why are you going to what? Animators having contract must draw boobies or something. So I felt like it was like kind of fair and balanced that finally girls have kind of a fan servicey show, but man, there's a lot of shot of abs in that show. It was really fun to work on. It was actually it was a little stressful to work on because there aren't too many shows that you work on it's a crazy thing about anime is it's one of these things that people really are anticipating it because it was already successful in Japan. So we knew going into it that it was kind of important. So yeah, I love the part I played. Again, he's one of these guys that's just sort of with the group. He's funny, he's comical. I love working with Jerry Jewell. He's the director of Free. He's a super nice guy and a great singer. Yeah, it was a good experience working on the show. Johnny's here. I think he's in that show, right? Johnny, he's so dreamy. You guys see Johnny? Tell him I think he's dreamy.
Actually, Ian's here too.
Ian Sinclair, he's dreamy. He's greasy right now because he was just eating with me at Paula Dean's. He was probably the most excited of any of us because he loves to eat. That guy, he's a foodie. He's like, gotta get some collard greens in me real bad. Yes.
I was just wondering, with all the screaming that you have to do and all the fight scenes in Dragon Ball Z, how do you take care of your voice? Like, how do you not lose everything?
Most people, to preserve their voice, would absolutely never work on Dragon Ball Z. Like that is the worst possible thing you could do to your voice is to work on that show. Video games are very much like that too. A lot of video games, especially I own a studio in Dallas called Okratron 5000. Very appropriate name for a town here, actually. You guys would like that name. Okra means nothing. It really means nothing as far as the business is concerned, but Tron, if you put the word Tron next to anything, it gives it like technological significance. So Okratron sounds really important, like a giant robot that manufactures okra or something, but it's called Okratron 5000, and 5000 if you put a number at the end of everything, especially if it's like a futuristic number like 5000, then it's like super important. In our studio, we work with Gearbox and id and a lot of other places on games. We did all of the Borderlands stuff, and so yeah, when you're working on video games and you're working on Dragon Ball, it's a lot of screaming, and the only thing you can do is just kind of know your body's limits and just kind of take a break when you need to. But really, sometimes you just, like if you want to be on a show like Dragon Ball, you're just gonna mess your voice up and just rest afterwards. Just try not to mess it up too much to where you can't do it again. The worst damage I ever did to my voice, believe it or not, was, you wouldn't expect this, but I was down for like 3 weeks because I screwed up my voice doing Raccoon of all the people.
In order to do a raccoon, you have to open your voice box and hold your throat out real bad.
And like flexing this muscle here, like they got really swollen, and I couldn't voice act for like 3 weeks after I went. It was the first time and only time I've ever had to go to the doctor. And his answer was like, I went to this really expensive ENT, this guy who's worked with Ozzy Osbourne and worked with all these famous people, and his advice was like, yeah, you really shouldn't yell that much. I go, thanks. Here's my stupid money for you to tell me what I already knew. Like, what'd you tell Ozzy Osbourne? You shouldn't sing anymore? I don't sing anymore. Anyway, Dragon Ball shirt, yes.
What was it like working not working for, but working with Sean Shamil?
Sean Shamil is or Sean Schemmel, or Sean Shamel, or Sean Schimmel, as everyone calls him a different name, because I don't even know how to pronounce it. He is a really weird dude. I like him. He and I have a very Vegeta and Goku-like relationship in a way, although he is the one with, oddly enough, he's the one with the anger issues. And I'm the one that's just like, chill out, man. It's cool. Chill out. It's fine. You're going to be fine. And so Sean is a very, he's just a super intense dude. And he is like Goku in that he's kind of naive about stuff as well. He's super, super smart and very, very talented, but also shockingly gullible. I can convince him of anything. Lately, because we've known each other for so long, and we've been traveling a lot, especially this year promoting the movies, I've had this weird, and I've never done this before in the 15 previous years that we've known each other. I've had this funny thing about, like, what if I was Vegeta and he was Goku? And I send him texts sometimes as Vegeta in situations that apply to what we're doing. Like, I go, Sean, what floor of the hotel are you on? He'll go, I'm on 21. I go, I'm on 19. I cannot believe that you have a higher floor than I do. One day I will ascend to floor 22. And Sean will go, are you all right, Chris? But I do that to him all the time, and it's just really funny to me to imagine if they were just like dudes living in the world. Anyway, yeah, it's been such a good year. In the Kirby shirt, yeah.
Was there ever a character that you wanted to play but didn't get a chance to?
There was a character I got to play and then didn't get to play. For a while, about 10 years ago, there was this video game that recorded in Dallas. Sorry, I just burped. Paula Dean, you're welcome. There was this video game that was recording in Dallas, and there's no reason, I never knew why they recorded it in Dallas, but they were recording and they'd cast all these voices. And it turns out it was because there was a writer's strike happening in Los Angeles, so they'd come to Dallas and they found their cast there. And so I did several sessions as this big, burly dude with this giant machine gun guy, and it was his name was Marcus Phoenix on Gears of War, and then eventually they took that game, and like the writer's strike was over, and like, we're sorry guys, we apologize, like the publisher's making us do this back in California again, so we have to cast all people that are in the union and blah blah blah. Fortunately, it went to an amazing actor, so I'm not really that jealous, but that's a role I had at one point. I no longer have, which is really sad. I always said I always wanted to play Solid Snake. And then eventually I did get to play Solid Snake, yeah. They did a death match with Solid Snake against Sam Fisher. I don't know if you all saw that.
He did?
And I had no idea if they had found out that I really wanted to play that or whatever, but they literally came out of the woodwork and just sent me an email and said, Chris, would you be interested in auditioning for this? I'm like, if you don't use me as Solid Snake, I will destroy you. They said, well, put an audition in for Sam Fisher too. I'm like, I will, but I won't play Solid Snake like that. But the thing is, I didn't play him necessarily the way I would record him, but I tried to do my best impression of David Hayter, because he is super, super talented, but I know that he also probably had to deal with something that I'm very intimately familiar with, and that's like having to record a Japanese game with Japanese people there. And it's a very, very interesting process because they don't always really understand the subtlety of what like voice acting, but they do take the stuff very seriously. Sometimes they just don't always know what's best, but they think they do. Which is what happened to me actually. I got cast in as Garland in Final Fantasy Dissidia. Did you guys play that? And man, that game I was so excited because they cast me because apparently the guy who plays Alex Louise Armstrong in Japan played Garland in Final Fantasy. So they said, well, that makes sense, but she's the same too. So they called me up, and when they called me in to do it, I said, how long are we going to be working on this? And they said, yeah, we might need 2 days, 2 full days of recording. And I got there, and it's like 2 pages. It was like triple spaced, big letters. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll be done with this in 2 hours. Like this is a shame because I'm getting paid really well to do this. But this is how the sessions ended up going. Like, okay, we're gonna do the first line here. We're gonna go ahead and show you what it looks like in Japanese. Kind of show you the animation, the animatic, just kind of give you an idea what it is, and then just give us like 2 reads of it, and then we'll just discuss it and then figure out which one we want. So we watch it, or whatever, and then I don't speak Japanese, obviously, and then I go, I am the beginning and the end. I am the beginning and the end. And they go, okay, thank you very much. Hold on 1 second, please. And then it was just, the beginning and the end. And then they would have like a 15-minute long conversation about it. And what made it worse is that they were recording it in the studio in Burbank, and I'm pretty sure Walt Disney's body was buried underneath the floor of the studio because it was the coldest place I've ever been in my entire life. And I was like, I'm a California dude, I'm wearing my shorts. And I was freezing cold. And I was standing there, I'm like, oh my God. And then they talk for 15 minutes, they go, yes, we think that line was good. Where will you go on to the next line? And then I go like, I will defeat you. I will defeat you. Okay, hold on. And they talk for like 15 minutes. They go, okay, he is dying in this line. I'm like, okay, sorry. It was just there was no description, so I'll do it again. I will defeat you. And they go, okay, hold on a minute. And then another 15 minutes. And eventually I was like, guys, do you have a Wi-Fi password? I'm gonna get on my laptop. And I'm gonna write emails in between these lines, and the laptop will give me heat. And I'm like, it was kind of torture and also amazing at the same time. Because on the other hand, I had to keep going, Chris, shut up, you're making a lot of money to do this. Like it was one of the most expensive voice sessions I've ever done for any video game, because it's Final Fantasy, and there are certain times when you get paid more because they know they're going to use it in America, and they're going to put it on the disc in Japan, and they're going to use it all in several different regions all over the world. So I didn't complain. It was one of those situations that I could be doing anything else right now. The fact that I'm whining about how cold it is pretty stupid. So, yes, fake Goku.
Would you like to see Vegeta go?
I would love to see Vegeta go Super Saiyan 3. But that would also be really confusing because now, I'm just trying to figure out if Super is going to make GT non-canon or not. So I'm waiting to find out if we don't really know yet. I really want to find out. I just hope he goes super duper extra God Saiyan mode.
Goku, when he went Super Saiyan 3, he gotta have a deeper voice. If they did make Vegeta go Super Saiyan 3,
I'd use a higher voice. I'd probably just give him I'd give him a little. I would give him a little lip. I'm super strong. That's what I would do. Actually, I have no idea. I probably wouldn't change it at all because, Saint's hair never grows. That's a dumb excuse. Yes, you in the back.
How interesting, for lack of a better word.
Very interesting. Find a better word. You said you had a lack of a better word. Just take your time, find a better word. I'm joking. How fun was it? It was ridiculous. Like I mentioned it a little while ago, it was like one of the most ridiculous sessions I've ever been on because you had to say terrible things and do terrible things. And there was a lot. There was actually Colleen Klinkenbeard, who was the voice of Luffy. I'm not strong enough to open this water bottle. Well, thank you. You're so nice. That's the voice I'm going to use for Super Saiyan. I'm the prince of all Saiyans. I'm a Super Saiyan 3 now. I'm so powerful. I said go back to the way I was before. Yes, in the hat. Sorry, both wearing hats.
Is there actually a role that you played that you didn't actually like playing?
All of them. I mean, all of them were good. There was one character I played in Dragon Ball Z. I took over for this other guy on a character, Ox King. And in Dragon Ball Z, he was just like this big oafishy dude, like Chi-Chi or whatever. And it was easy, it was fine to play, but then when we went back into Dragon Ball, I realized that he had to fight, he had to be kind of tough, it was like a big character. So that's when I realized like I can't do this character, like it's not physically possible for me. I don't think I was doing a good job. So I asked Kyle Hebert if he would take over that role for me. So he definitely did that. Let's see. There's so many roles that like there's really painful ones. Like one of the most amazing roles I've had, and yet one of the most painful roles I've had to play was let's see. It was called. Oh yeah, it's a brand new show. It's called Ninja Slayer. Have you guys seen Ninja Slayer yet? Yes. It's fun. It's streaming on Funimation's website. It's just the craziest, weirdest show I've ever seen. Like it looks like something straight out of like 1990s Adult Swim or something like that. It looks like there's moments where they fight one another, and the ninja always introduces himself. It's like, Domo, I am Ninja Slayer. And they go, Domo Ninja Slayer, I'm Dark Shadow or whatever. And they always have this weird introductory thing. And he said, prepare your death haiku because I will destroy you now. Because death is the only way out for ninjas. And I'm not kidding, it's like this every episode. And then what happens is usually it's either one punch and then the enemy's head explodes, like with real blood or something, and it cuts away like with a real explosion and real blood. And then, or they have a smaller fight and the characters will lift up off the ground like paper dolls or something and then just attack each other with their feet. Like, you really need to see it. It's a bizarre show. And it's, yeah, I think you'll like it. Yes.
Could you tell me more about your role as Gero?
I can tell you more. Yes, he's a frog, and he kind of sounds like my voice, sort of. And I played him He reminded me of all of the other bad guy characters that I play. You know what I mean? All kind of wrapped into one thing. He's like a little red frog, and he has a bazooka, and he's a cat that he loves so much called Mrs. Furbottom. Yes, which I think we called him Mr. Furbottom, and then we found out in a later episode that it was a woman, a female cat. So we had to change it to Mrs. Furbottom, which not everyone liked. But that's just the way we roll. Yeah, I can't tell you much more about it. I loved working on it mostly because Joel McDonald was one of the directors, and I love all of the cast members in it. I think Chuck Huber is brilliant in it. Brina is brilliant in it. Like, you guys know Brina Palencia? Yeah, she's awesome, amazing, beautiful. She's at home taking a selfie with her cat right now. If you guys follow her on Instagram, that's all she does is take photos of herself with her cat. Yes, you guys could fight over which one gets to insert like armor or something. Thumb war. Are you guys friends? You guys know each other? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's pointing at you. Yeah.
Want me? Okay. What was it like knowing that all this time you've been saying it's over 9,000, and then you get one word one day, it's actually been 8,000?
It's I knew about the translation problem before the meme got really out of control, to say the least. And the hardest part, though, for all these years, has been explaining it to the Japanese, though, because in all the subsequent video games that we worked on, I want to leave the over 9,000 thing in there, but then we'll get a bug report back from the Japanese and go, actually, we noticed video, you say over 9,000 in the translation, in over 8,000. And we go, oh, yeah, we're just gonna have to trust me. It is supposed to be over 9,000, and we're gonna have to keep. Yes, but the translation say it's over 8,000, and you say over 9. Like, really, you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. We kind of need to leave that in there. And then eventually I had to send them the video and explain to them what a meme was, and yeah, it can't be done. And they said, okay, you can keep over 9,000 for whatever reason. You guys are stupid Americans. Why are you so happy about that?
You don't know how to count.
We don't have more time to talk about this. We have to finish the swimming pool episode of Dragon Ball. Actually, which I guess they had. That was their fan service character was Marin. If you guys remember, that was Krillin's girlfriend for like 5 minutes. Yes, I'll get to you in 1 second. I'm gonna go to this guy here.
Is there any chance that you can do this like a pie duck?
There's a chance, yes. There's always a chance. I'm hoping that's going to happen one of these days. But I can neither confirm nor deny that the Boo Saga does or does not exist, even in a Kai-like format. So, okay. It means nothing. Yes, you.
When are we gonna get another season of Shin-Chan?
That is a good question. I can neither confirm nor deny. Actually, I can confirm that I don't know crap about that. I really don't. I'm just a director and a voice actor, and I don't really know anything until they hand me the show. And even when I think I know things, I just pretend that I don't because it's subject to change at any given moment. So, yes. How much do I relate with Elfman? Fairy tale. Well, I say more than one thing all the time, and he just says, "Be a man!" all the time. Sometimes when I go in to record with Tyler on that, I'll walk in the booth and I go, "All right, hold on, Tyler, is the mic open? Okay. Yeah, man, be a man. I'm manly. Let's be man. I'm so manly. Don't be manly. Manly attack." And I go, "Did you get everything you need?" He'll go, "No, we have to record all the lines." I'm like, "Just use it for the last episode." He is so one-dimensional, and then he'll have an amazing episode where it's just him doing something awesome, and then I have to figure out how I'm actually gonna voice act this character when he's done nothing but just be I don't know, you're that friend that does nothing but tell stupid jokes, and then something serious comes up, and then he doesn't know what to do. So Luffy in the back.
How was it playing Zoro? What did you think of his character when they first gave you the idea?
Oh man, I was actually in love with that character long before I got to play Zoro, because back, as you guys know, that there was a 4Kids version of this, which was not very well received, let's just say. But before 4Kids got that show, Funimation was entertaining the idea of working on that show, and I was working at Funimation at the time, and I remember we got the materials in for it, and I was asked to review it and see what I thought of it. So I watched a handful of episodes and just loved it. I was like, this show's amazing. But I did have to agree with Funimation's opinion to not take the show. They opted not to buy it at that time because they were having a hard time. It was difficult because they wanted to put it on television. And at that time, they were editing so much of TV. It was it's going to be really hard to put a show on TV about a kid who's made of rubber that you could try and shoot bullets at, and they bounce right off. Like, that's the worst thing a child could possibly watch. Like, oh, guns don't hurt people. Because they don't really care. Like, back in those days, they didn't care as much about necessarily violence. They just didn't want repeatable violence. They didn't want something that a child could watch and go, oh, I could do that too, and then kill somebody. So, in that regard, I agreed with their decision, like, not to take that show. They eventually got it later because the temperature had changed, and we can have pretty much any content we want on TV now. But I remember watching this. I not only watched about, I guess, 20 episodes. I read a lot of the manga too, preparing, assuming we were going to get the show. But Zoro was easily my favorite character. He just comes in so strong at the beginning, and so lucky to play him now, because that character is just so good always, and the show's getting darker and darker and more serious, and then it gets really lighthearted, because right now I don't know how much of this I'm allowed to talk about, but I can tell you, I don't care. We're now in the dubbing the part where it's this giant time skip, and Luffy's doing a bunch of stuff by himself, and Zoro is stuck in a castle with this girl named Corona or something like that. I hope that's not a spoiler, actually, if you guys are... Yeah, whatever. Yes. I remember Salty Ray. I loved Salty Ray. I always forget about Salty Ray. We recorded Salty Ray in my studio. It was one of the first outside dubs that we did for Funimation. And I love that character. That's the first time I ever came out with a technique that I still use to this day. A technique that I would not recommend to any of you because it is repeatable violence. It's a show about a guy who gets really emotional about his daughter and stuff like that. And I hadn't had kids yet, so I hadn't grown that organ in my body that makes you really sad about everything. Because now I have children and I cry like way more often than I used to. And it's crazy. Like, I have no idea what it is about childbirth that I didn't actually birth the child, but having a child that makes you so much more sympathetic to everything now because there's so much more weight in your life. Anyway, I came up with this method of, like, I was trying to find a way to distract myself in the booth to go, like, how can I do this scene and not think about the fact that I'm trying to cry or do something super emotional. So I came up with this idea of, like, sticking my finger, like, in my eye and pushing on it while I was recording, and it actually seemed to work because I'm thinking, ow, this really hurts. And instead of, ow, there's like 5 people outside watching me like cry in a small booth by myself. So it was a technique, and I still use it occasionally to this day, although I don't have to use it as much because now I cried Inside Out, like it's just like, I cry in all Pixar movies now. I mean, I'm just kidding, I'm just joking. I watch sports. Nothing but sports. Like, I work out real hard. I don't cry ever. Actually, I'm like overtime, aren't I? I'm overtime. Guess what, guys? This is just like day 1. I'm here for 2 more days. So, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here.